Counts. Pictures from the Eastern Front, only just released, show us episodes in Russia's heroic counter-offensive last winter. They are grave days now. They were grave days then, with the Germans in the outskirts of Leningrad and Moscow. Then the Red Army, fighting in the terrible cold of a Russian winter, halted the enemy and drove him back, inflicting heavy casualties. Hundreds of villages were recaptured, thousands of people liberated. Here's Lieutenant Sharonenko, a tank officer, reunited with his family, living in the village from which the Germans have just been flung out. A number of iron crosses and worthless trinkets of that kind were discovered here. The recapture of Rostov-on-Don marked the beginning of the Soviets' brilliant comeback last winter, which brought new hope and strengthened the faith of millions of freedom-loving people throughout the world. Now this industrial seaport in the northern Caucasus has once again been taken by Germany. The Soviet has lost Rostov and much precious territory, as well as raw materials and war factories. But the factories that remain are redoubling their efforts. Just as Russia's fighting men fight every yard of the way, so the factory workers fight back too. The Soviet reciprocates our faith. It knows that Britain and America are racing against time to come to its aid with more weapons and with attack in the West. Last winter, the Red Air Force deserved much of the credit for the successful counter-offensive. Now, too, in weather very different from this, Soviet airmen are fighting hard and tirelessly. This is a raid by Russian bombers on a German airfield. Many Junkers machines on the ground were damaged or destroyed. The Soviet paratroops, too, played a big part then, as now, by landing in the enemy's rear and cutting his communications. Pictures by the Russian newsreel cameraman Schneiderov, who flew with them over the forest into enemy-held territory. Schneiderov came down with them too and witnessed the success of the operation. Though one more inhabited locality was set free, they found here the appalling evidence of Hitler's new order. Soviet people tortured, murdered, massacred. Is it likely that the Soviet people, in factory or field or at the front, will ever give up the struggle, however hard, until full retribution has been exacted for these filthy crimes? The news is grave, as it was grave before the gates of Moscow. Now, as then, the Soviet fights on. Then, as now, German advances were made at great cost. More than last year, Hitler fears the mounting strength of the powers of freedom. He fears, too, the coming of another winter, now some 3 months off. Last winter, German soldiers beaten by Russia and the Russian cold cried Kamerad and came in to surrender with special passes dropped by Soviet airmen. Glad to have saved their skins. Today, though the world against them has grown stronger, the Germans are once more boasting of new successes, boasting that Russia is beaten. But the Battle of Russia is not over yet.